Conference will now be recorded.
Cheshvan. Next month is Kislev. Okay, and it's often referred to as Mar Cheshvan. And I don't know if the reason is really because it's bitter, or if that's what we just say. I think it might have to do with the rainfall. But either way, right? So it's typically referred to as the bitter month of Cheshvan. What's so bitter about this month? No holidays. So let's go for a little tour through our Jewish year. So next month is Kislev, right? And which holidays do we have over there? Hanukkah. After Kislev comes, well, which month comes after Kislev?
Month of Tevet.
Tevet. Good, Orly. Thank you. And which holidays in Tevet? Bit of a trick question.
Is it the one of the trees?
No, not yet.
Oh,
The reason it's a bit of a trick question is
it's a fast, right?
No. Let's take a step back. So Kislev is the holiday of Hanukkah, right? What date of Kislev does it start? 25th. And it's an 8-day holiday. Therefore, it's going to, right, the latter half of the holiday is in Tevet. So both Kislev and Tevet have holiday, Hanukkah. Okay? So Cheshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat. Right? That's where, Orly, like you said, we have the holiday of the trees, Tu B'Shvat, a quasi-holiday, we'll call it. Tu B'Shvat. Adar, that's an easy one. Purim. Nisan, Passover. Pesach, that's an easy one. After Nisan comes Iyar. Okay, so Iyar is Lag BaOmer. What else is in Iyar? Also a little bit of a tricky one. Well, that's all part of the Lag BaOmer. But we also have what's called Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is that if you did not bring your Korban Pesach, your Pesach sacrifice, you were unable to bring it the first, and in Pesach, Nisan, you could bring it 1 month later. Okay? And that's actually a very beautiful parsha in the Torah, that the people who were unable to bring Korban Pesach, they came to Moshe and said, why should we be missing out? Right? Which is the way that we're supposed to look at it, right? A mitzvah is an obligation. It's something that we're commanded to do, but a mitzvah is an opportunity, right? And so it should be viewed as an opportunity of connection more than as a checklist, something that I got to do. And that was their attitude, right? We were ritually impure. We were unable to bring the Korban Pesach. So why should we lose out? And Moshe said, let me ask God that question, and came back with, in fact, Pesach Sheni. So Nisan, Iyar is Pesach. Does someone have a question? I saw a hand. Yes.
Is that connected with counting the Omer?
It's
30 days?
Lag BaOmer is connected to counting of the Omer, but Pesach Sheni is not.
You mentioned the 30 days?
The 33rd day of the Omer. Lag is Lamed, which is 30, Gimel, 3. So Lag BaOmer is related to the counting of the Omer, and it's a festive day in the middle of other, we'll get to when we come to there, right? Actually, right, the counting is supposed to be a beautiful, momentous counting all the way from Pesach to Shavuot, but there is an element of sadness, of mourning, of Avelut that gets mixed in because of the deaths of the students of Rabbi Akiva during that time period. But Lamed Gimel, the 33rd day, was a break in that, and therefore that is a more celebratory day. Yeah, I got it. On my third try, I got it. I knew I could get it. Yeah. Okay. So that is Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot. Okay, good. Tammuz, right. So that's a bit of a problem. Tammuz, we have the 17th day of Tammuz, which is a fast day commemorating when the walls of Jerusalem were breached. So why is that a happy day? And let's go take one more also. And Av is, we have Tisha B'Av, which is the day that both the first and second temple were destroyed. Those are not happy days. Those are bitter days. So why are those months considered to be not happy months as opposed to Mar, poor, bitter, bereft, Cheshvan? The Navi tells us, the Navi Zechariah, the Navi Zechariah tells us that all of those sad days are going to be transformed into days of celebration. All the days of mourning, all the days of sadness will become days of celebration. And therefore, Shivasa B'Tammuz, the month of Tammuz is covered, the month of Av is covered, and we can even go back to Kislev Tevet, which we had a problem with. There's also a fast day in Tevet. Yeah. So Tevet actually has a few things going for it. How about Elul though? 1 second. Elul doesn't have any holidays. Well, I guess we could argue and say that. Well, I think that's the real answer. What you're saying. We could argue and say, well, it does have a fast day. Which fast day does Elul have? Tzom Gedalia, the fast of Gedalia, the day after Rosh Hashanah. So that too will be transformed into a day of celebration. We give that answer. So that could cover Elul. But I think the real answer, Elul, is all the preparations that we have for all the holidays that are coming up, for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. So that's a serious lead up. Right? And therefore, okay, good. Let's come back to where we are over here, and let's continue with our Shabbos. Hello there. How are you, Rachel? Good to see you. You have a book? You have a book? Good. Everyone's got a book? I got an extra one if you need. Okay, good. Any question anybody has before we go on? Okay. And once again, congratulations to Shelby on the passing of the California bar. Right, and now it's now that the easy test is over, now comes the real thing, right? And let's bring this baby home. Okay, good. Okay, we're up to 172 in our book, the Malach of Tearing. I think we did that. Yeah, and now we're starting. So we did the first 11 was the Seder, the order of doing what? Of baking, cooking. So it started with plowing. And 11 steps till we took the bread out of the oven. Okay. The next 13 were the Seder of sowing. Okay. And that started with shearing the animal, shearing our sheep. That's how it all started. And then we worked our way through 13 steps until we got to the sowing and the unsowing, the desowing. Okay, I know it's not a word. Okay, now we start our next Seder, which is, so we're up to 24. This is going to be a set of 9, and that is writing. Okay, now what's the first step of writing? Trapping. Why? You need something to write on, the hide, right? You're writing on parchment, okay? Not that the only writing that's problematic on Shabbos is writing on parchment, but that's where this is going to start. Trapping, 25, number 25, which is page 173. The malach of trapping involves catching animals or limiting their freedom of movement so they can easily be caught. Forbidding activities include trapping animals, including insects by hand or by instrument, chasing animals into an enclosure where they can easily be caught, closing a window in a room to prevent a bird from escaping, closing a container which a fly entered, setting up traps or snares for catching animals. Okay? How are you? Good to see you. Good. Okay. So just introduce yourself if you don't know. I know you know some of the people here. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. 1 second.
Oh, we're on Zoom too. Oh, very nice.
Yes.
Hi everyone. My name's Oriana. Just started attending Jacob. I'm from CBI. Used to go to, or still kind of go congregation, B'nai Israel in Tustin.
Nice.
Great to meet everyone.
Good. And going to be starting a An official program.
Yes, an
Yes.
official program. My
Yes.
dad is Persian Jewish, but hopefully we'll be going under an official Orthodox conversion soon.
Yes. Right. Oh, did you completed your conservative?
It's
Tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay,
I have
good.
the mikvah for conservative conversion tomorrow, but
Okay.
we'll be doing it the right way, like you said.
Okay.
Last Shabbat.
A good step.
A good step.
A good
stepping
step.
stone. Yes.
And then we bring it home.
Yes, we'll bring it home.
And then we bring it home. Good. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. So what we're doing over here is going through the 39 malachot of Shabbos, the 39 creative activities of Shabbos. Just quickly explain exactly where did the 39 come from? The Mishkan. What's the connection of Shabbos and Mishkan?
God making space for us in His world.
Good. Creation is God made space for us in His world. Mishkan is us making space for God in our world. Okay. And whenever the Torah discusses Shabbos, it always mentions Mishkan and the building of the tabernacle right alongside it. And the Torah says not to do malacha, but it doesn't say what malacha is. Malacha is, right? We understand that to be constructive, creative activity, but it doesn't explain exactly what that is. But the Torah, the oral teaching that we have, and this is an area where Orthodoxy and conservative Judaism diverge. Okay, and that is that Orthodoxy views the Torah Shebaal Peh, the Talmud, as establishing a firm basis, right? Whereas conservative views it more like, well, that we can adjust, we can change. That's what they say, but we can say this. Whereas from an Orthodox point of view, the Torah Shebaal Peh is Moshe Misinai, and the same way that Moshe received from God the written Torah, Moshe received from God also the oral Torah. And another point I think I mentioned to you guys, but it was a realization that I was not I didn't really focus on that. So when was the Torah actually written?
Well, you don't really know. It was either like right after the 40 days, or was it
Either at the very end of the 40 years in the desert, or piecemeal over the course of the 40 years in the desert. But the Torah was not complete until the end of the 40 years. So what they were observing in the desert until that point was basically oral Torah, because there was not yet a written Torah. So really the oral Torah preceded the written Torah in fact. Okay? So the oral Torah tradition that we have is that when God said to Moshe on Mount Sinai, and they shouldn't do any malacha, right? So if you were Moshe, what will your next words be? What's malacha, right? And the answer was all of those 39 steps that went into the building of the Mishkan, those are the 39 malachot which you abstain from doing on Shabbat. Okay, so we're working our way through the 39 in a more general overview, page 173, a more general overview, and then we're going to be focusing through this book on those that are the most applicable to us on Shabbos and how they apply to us on Shabbos. So we had the first 11 was the order of cooking and baking, which started with plowing. The next 13 was the order of sowing, right, which began with shearing the sheep. And now we're starting the next group of 9 that will bring us to a tally of 33. And then we have 2, 2, 1, 1 to get to 39. But this next order is the order of writing, and that begins with trapping. Why does it begin with trapping? You need to get the parchment upon which we write. Right? Of course, we don't write only on parchment, but a Sefer Torah is written on parchment, mezuzah on parchment, and tefillin are written on parchment. Those are referred to as stam. Sefer, tefillin, mezuzot. Okay, which is Torah, tefillin, and mezuzot. A scribe is called a sofer. Scribe, sofer, stam. That's how official title. Sofer, scribe of stam. Samech, taf, mem, svarim, tefillin, and mezuzot. So, What sort of trapping is very relevant to us?
Maybe putting an animal in a crate.
Okay. Putting your dog in a crate, right? Would that be considered trapping the animal?
Well, wouldn't be traffic, but I think put an
I don't
animal in
think so.
Okay. So a domesticated dog, right, which goes into its crate at night, and that's how you let it know, hey, bedtime, no more barking, no more running around, time to settle down, right? I don't know if that would be considered trapping because it's basically trapped already. Okay? Your dog sleeps in a crate?
No.
Yeah.
But then
I would
also
say it's more for like bugs, or if you're trapping a spider or trying to catch a fly or something like that.
Okay, right? A fly, a mosquito. Well, why don't we just kill the darn thing?
Well, that's a malacha too, killing an
That's the
animal.
malacha too, right? We can't kill something on Shabbos. Okay? So the mosquito's buzzing around and you finally see him, right? You can't kill him. Okay? Now, if we're talking about a situation, right? So trapping would also be a problem. Okay? Now, if we're talking about a situation where we've got, let's say the sukkah and the yellow jacks, the bees in the sukkah, which can really not just be a nuisance, but can actually be harmful, be dangerous. So there we would allow a trapping that's not a complete trapping. Meaning, right, if you grab a cup and you catch it under the cup, right? Is it fully trapped? Well, yes and no, because it still will take some work afterwards, right? You got to slide this thing underneath it, and then shake, whatever you want to do, right? It still takes some work afterwards. So there will be some leeway when we're dealing with something that can be harmful. What were you saying, Ryan? Were you saying something? Someone was saying something. I cut you off, I think. Right. So you brought up if you're leaving the house, you want to leave the dog you're putting the dog in the crate. Again, I'm not sure if that's considered trapping. I'm not sure because, is locking it in the house considered trapping it? Is locking it into a room considered trapping it? If you close it in a room, is that considered trapping it? So I don't know if putting it into a crate also would be considered trapping it, or it's just keeping it in the place where it's supposed to be, right? Yeah, I don't know if that would be considered trapping. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, I can have traps set up before Shabbos, right? If there are, some mice in the house, you want to put some glue traps, those could be put out before Shabbos. Or next to our fruit baskets, we have a little container with little holes just poked through and some apple cider vinegar in there. And the little fruit flies, they like that. And they go in over there, but they don't, they can't make it out of there. And that's where they meet their demise, right? So that can be set up before Shabbos, right? And that would not be a problem. But actively setting up a trap on Shabbos or catching something on Shabbos, that would be a problem. The next one is where we get to page 174, where we get to the issue with our mosquitoes or the malach of slaughtering involves doing anything to shorten the life of a living creature, right? You're not going to be slaughtering, a mosquito, right? But killing goes into the same category. Forbidden activities include any form of killing, including removing fish from water, exterminating insects, right? Spraying, causing bleeding, making a wound or causing a bruise. It is also prohibited to press on a wound so that it will bleed. Okay? Now, can you take out a splinter on Shabbos? Hmm? You think so? Thank you, doctor. Why do you think so, doctor?
Could be harmful.
Huh?
Could be a harmful.
It could be harmful.
Isn't
And
it not like selecting?
no, because it's not a mixture, right? Right. So Tamar asked, isn't that considered selecting? Selecting is when that bora, that's when you've got a mixture and I'm pulling something out. That's not a mixture. That's just in there. Now, what might be, right? And it's causing you tsar, right? Now, what might be the problem in removing a splinter on Shabbos?
You may draw blood.
You might draw blood. Correct, right? It might bleed, right? But that is not going to be a problem because it's not what we call a psik resha. I think we've had that term. If we haven't, we need to know that term. Psik resha is a shortened version of what the Gemara says, which is psik resha velo yamut. If you cut off its head, will it not die? Okay, now what are we talking about over here? So there in Shabbos, we'll see there's a concept called malacha, a davar she'eno mitkavein, something that I did not have the intention to do, right? Meaning I'm pulling a chair across my lawn and it caused this little furrow. Oh, that's plowing. You just plowed. You did an act of plowing. No, I didn't intend to plow, right? So if it's a davar she'eno mitkavein, if it's a davar, a matter she'eno mitkavein, that was not my kavanah, that was not my intent, that's not going to be a problem on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the issue is melechet machashevet, the malach that you're doing with a machshava, with a thought, with an intent. However, the Gemara discusses that well before Lego and Mattel, children used to play with severed heads of birds.
What?
Again, right? Not in Irvine, right? Not in well before Lego. That was an ancient Babylonian plaything for a child, the head of a bird. So now, if I knock off the head of the bird, my intent is not to kill the bird. My intent is to get my child something to play with. So one might argue that that would be allowed on Shabbos, even though you're killing the bird, which you're not allowed to do. It's a davar she'eno mitkavein. It's something that I'm not intending to do, right? And therefore, like dragging the bench across my yard, and I just did these furrows that now I'm plowing. That's okay. That wasn't my kavanah, my intent. My intent to kill. I didn't intend to kill the bird. But the Gemara says, "Sik reisha v'lo yamut." You're going to take off its head. Is it not going to die? Meaning, if it is an automatic, unavoidable consequence, then you can't say that wasn't my intention. That's automatically going to happen. If I'm dragging something across my yard, it's not necessarily going to plow up my yard, and that's okay. But if it is a very heavy bench that I'm pulling across my yard, that will be a problem. Why? Because even though it's eno mitkavein, even though it's not my intention, what is that? A psik resha. That's the term we use. It's a head chop, right? And by a head chop, you can't say, I didn't intend to kill it, right? Therefore, when it's a psik resha, that's going to be an issue. Now, coming back to our splinter. So, as Nash said, maybe it's going to bleed. But is that a psik resha? Is it definitely going to bleed? No. Usually when you remove a splinter, it doesn't cause bleeding. It's one of the outer layers of skin, and it's not reaching the capillaries. It's not going to cause bleeding, right? So therefore, one can remove the splinter, even if it will cause some bleeding, right? Because that was not your intention, and it's not a psik resha. How about brushing teeth? Coming back to that again. So you can do it, right? If it's a psik resha that your gums are definitely going to bleed, what should you do? See a dentist. Okay? See a dentist ASAP, because your gums should not be bleeding every time that you are brushing your teeth. If they are, right, so then we need to raise the bar on our oral hygiene and probably go see a dentist, because you might have some gingivitis, some gum issues going on. Okay? But as long as it's not a psik reisha, then one can brush one's teeth. Okay, good. So that is slaughtering. Now, on Yom Tov, we're allowed to slaughter an animal. Why is that? For ochel nefesh, for food, we're allowed to do different malachot. Does that mean I could kill mosquitoes on Yom Tov? No. Why not? Because you're not allowed to eat them, right? Right? And you're not allowed to eat them, right? So therefore, it's not that we automatically suspend the problem of slaughtering on Yom Tov. It's that we allow it for ochel nefesh, right? For food consumption, right? But that would not help with the mosquitoes around. It's gotten a little worse recently, hasn't it? Yeah. I think we've had some like East Coast mosquito invasion. When I first moved here, there were no mosquitoes, and now all of a sudden, I didn't bring them. But now it's gotten worse all of a sudden. Okay, skinning. The Malach 27, page 170, the Malach of skinning involves skinning and flaying the hide of animals. Okay, how about that? The guy's eating some chicken, he doesn't want the skin on it. Oh, is that going to be a problem? So one is permitted to remove the skin from a piece of cooked chicken as one eats it, since it is edible and is considered food. But the feathers left on the chicken skin may not be removed, right? In our world, we don't have too many feathers left on our chicken skin, right? If we do, I think we bring it back to the store. Okay. Right. Same thing with eating fish. If there's the skin over there, that will not be an issue, right? And certainly fruits, peeling, also not an issue. Egg, not an issue at all. Tanning, also not such an issue for us, right? Because again, not so much in our world. Let's see. Lach of tanning involves tanning and processing leather, other materials. Forbidden activities include smearing oil on leather and shoes, okay? Processing materials and chemical solutions, pickling food, salting meat, and the like. Interesting. Pickling food. What would be the problem with pickling food? So that would go into this category of tanning, of processing. What would be another issue of pickling food?
Well, for starters, I would think that it has to be over time, so you're preparing something on Shabbos that you're not immediately
Okay,
after.
good. Now to come back to you 1 second. What were you saying, Baz?
Is it cause some level of reaction?
Okay, so the chemical reaction is not really the issue. It's only when that's done through heat and cooking, right? But Nashman pointed out a nice point over here, that we don't prepare on Shabbos for after Shabbos. We prepare before Shabbos for Shabbos. We don't use Shabbos to prepare for things after Shabbos. And pickling is a process, right? It's not going to get pickled, within a few hours. And therefore, that would be an issue of preparing it for after Shabbos. You have something to say? We're good? Okay. Now, so just on that note, right? So we can't prepare on Shabbos for after Shabbos. So this comes up fairly often. Let's say you're clearing off the table Friday night, and there's a lot of chicken left over, and you're not going to eat it during the week. So what do you want to do with the chicken? You want to put it in the freezer, right? Is that a problem on Shabbos? Would that be considered preparing for after Shabbos? Practical issue. Is that a problem or not a problem?
I would say it's not a problem. You're just saying.
Okay. So Lily says it's not a problem. I'm just saving it. Well, let me ask another question. Is it a problem to put it into the fridge? Why not? Well, I'm not going to eat it again on Shabbos. I'm
But you can
preparing
always
for
go back and
Shabbos.
get it. You can always go back and get it if you change your mind.
Right.
So
Okay, okay, but yes, that's a possibility, right? But I have no intention to eat it again on Shabbos, right? So do I have to leave it out?
Just throw it away?
No. Why not? Because I'm allowed to put it in its proper place. The same way that when I clear off the table, I could put things back into the cupboard, right? Into the pantry. I'm not going to use it again on Shabbos. I'm preparing for after Shabbos. No, I'm not preparing for after Shabbos. I'm finishing my Shabbos meal. This is not the start of a preparation for something else. This is the wrap up of my Shabbos meal. The wrap of the Shabbos meal is you put things into the appropriate place for it. If it's the pantry, it's the pantry. If it's the refrigerator, it's the refrigerator. So I don't have to put it now. If the appropriate place for this chicken, that I'm not going to be eating it during this week, I'm not going to be eating it the next few days. If the appropriate place for it is in the freezer, I don't have to put it into the wrong place. I'm allowed to finish out and put it into the appropriate place. Nash, you disagree with that?
no, that's good. I agree. I do have one question regarding going back on the pickling. Like, for example, what about a situation where it is immediate reaction? Like, say you're making ceviche. Is that okay to squeeze lemon that temporarily kind of changes the fish? Or is that okay because you're eating it right away as well?
Lemon onto fish?
Yeah, like if you're doing a ceviche where you're doing like
I know what
lemon,
that is.
lime. Ceviche is like the raw fish where you, by soaking it with lime juice and lemon, it kind of curates the fish, and it's like a raw dish, but it's semi-cooked because of the acid of the lemon.
So that might be a problem.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that would seem to be like pickling, salting the meat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
Right,
I mean, just putting lemon onto fish would not be a problem. What might be the problem of lemon onto fish?
Especially because
No, it's already cooked, right?
ceviche requires a lot of chopping of vegetables.
I'm sorry?
When you make ceviche, it requires chopping a lot of vegetables.
So chopping vegetables is not a problem as long as you're not chopping it too thin, right?
Okay.
That we said was
but the
okay.
lemon would be a problem then?
So if the lemon is going to be bringing about, not just flavoring it, but bringing about this chemical reaction and breaking the acid is cooking it like salting meat, that would be the issue, right?
It is.
But on a regular piece, I'm sorry, Gabriella?
The lemon pretty much cooks the fish.
Right.
Yes. So in that case, that would be a problem on Shabbos, right? But let's say just squeezing some lemon onto a piece of cooked fish already, just to add some nice lemon flavor for those who like it. So what might the issue be over there? Right? Squeezing out, schita, right? So that is an issue on Shabbos. However, there we do have a leniency that if it's going directly onto a solid, then it's becoming a solid, becoming part of a solid right away, and that would not end up being an issue. Okay, going back to the issue, or what some consider to be an issue of preparing for after Shabbos. So I think we discussed before, again, going back to our brushing of our teeth, right? So after we brush our teeth, we like to rinse off the toothbrush. Otherwise, it gets kind of like grainy and hard next time you want to use it. So is that considered preparation for after Shabbos? So there are those that will say yes, like Lily, but I say, right, but others say, and what I do, I say no, because when I rinse off my toothbrush, it's like putting away the food after a meal, right? It's finishing out my brushing of my teeth. It's the closeout of this act. It's not the preparation for the next act. That way, brushing teeth, you brush, and then you, right, rinse off the toothbrush and you put it down.
What about if you have toothbrushes once for Shabbos? specifically for Shabbos because I have an electric brush, but then I'll use a manual brush for Shabbos.
So do I. And I use my manual brush on Shabbos, and still, that's how you finish. The same way I finish a meal, you put the food in the cupboard, right, in the pantry or in the fridge or the freezer. You finish brushing your teeth, you rinse off the toothbrush.
Oh, rinsing, but you couldn't like squeeze out the water from the.
So you don't want to do like that because that gets back into our whole schita issue.
Okay.
But just rinse it off, that'll be fine. Okay. Yes.
Good question. So when it comes to like food and meals and stuff, and like Shabbos is or like Friday night's over, right? And you're picking up plates, you're putting it away, you're putting it in the sink, or you're putting the other plates back in the cupboard.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, again,
okay.
sorry.
So like Friday night meal is done, and you're putting like plates away, like back into the cupboard or into the sink to clean up plates back into the cupboard. They're
Okay.
already clean, like they weren't used or whatever.
Okay.
Would that be at all like starting to like come a little too close to like the final blow at all? Like where you're like finishing something,
No.
you're completing something?
No. Right. What Rachel is referring to is called Makeh B'Patish, which is the final blow, which is the 39th of the 39 Malachot, and that is completing a vessel and bringing it to the point of usage. That's why we wouldn't tovel something on Shabbos for that reason. But here, I'm not changing the kli. I'm just moving it from place to place. That would not be an issue, right? Another example, right, is when we finish a meal, so on Shabbos, so typically we will load up the dishwasher, right? So again, isn't that preparing for after Shabbos? Well, not really. Meaning, yes, I'll only turn on the dishwasher after Shabbos, but I've got to put it somewhere, right? So I don't have to put it in the wrong place, right? Right. Plus, there's also a factor, right? Talking about preparing for after Shabbos. Can you make your bed Shabbos morning? If you're not taking a nap that afternoon, can you make your bed Shabbos morning? Is that preparing for after Shabbos? So there are two arguments that can be made. A, right? That's when you finish sleeping, you get up, you make your bed, or that's what your mother always told you to do. Whether you do it or don't, that's another issue, right? But further than that, if the reason we're making the bed is because we want the room to look nice and neat for Shabbos and not look like a tornado hit it. So I'm not doing it for after Shabbos. I'm doing it for Shabbos. I finished Shabbos afternoon meal. I say I didn't eat in shul that week, right? So I finished Shabbos, and I'm not going to be eating shalosh shudas at home, right? So can I clear off the table? Is that preparing for after Shabbos? No. I want the house to look nice on Shabbos. I don't want a table all strewn with stuff, right? So that's considered A, finishing out the meal, and B, keeping things looking nice for Shabbos. Okay?
I had a question in regards to the food or during Shabbos, if you put it away in the freezer, are you still preparing for after Shabbos if you put it in the freezer with intentions to eat it on a specific day?
Doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Doesn't make a difference. If I'm putting it to the freezer, I'm certainly not planning on eating it on Shabbos, right? So whenever I'm planning, right, the argument that could be made, which we disagree with, is that you're preparing for after Shabbos. Then, the fridge, like some of you said, right? Well, you might decide to eat it on Shabbos, but the freezer, right? That's off limits at that point. Yeah, but I don't have to put it into the wrong place. We had a similar thing when we discussed muktzah. If I'm allowed to move something, right, even though it's muktzah. Familiar with muktzah? Muktzah is an object that is removed from your intent to use on Shabbos, so that should not be moved on Shabbos. In certain situations, we are allowed to move it. Once I'm able to move it, I don't have to, because I need the space on the table, so I don't have to go like this and then just like drop it somewhere else. Once it's in my hand, I can put it where it needs to go, and that would not be considered hachana. Okay. 29, scraping, right? Because these are all things that happen with the process of the hide, preparing the hide. Scraping, the method of scraping involves scraping and smoothing leather and other materials. Forbidding activities include smoothing leather and removing hairs from it. Smoothing creams or ointment onto skin. Oh, our chapsticks issue, right? That's going to be an issue. Using a bar of soap. We mentioned that. You can use liquid soap on Shabbos, right? For dishes, for hands, for face. Bars of soap, that is problematic on Shabbos. Cleaning soiled shoes by vigorously scraping them with a scraper or a piece of metal. Smoothing materials with sandpaper. So again, in our world, the soap and the ointments and the creams, that's very much in our world. Okay, that does come up. Marking lines, okay, as you see over there, right, in the picture, page 178, when he's writing the Sefer Torah, right? So there are no lines in a Sefer Torah, but there are lines in a Sefer Torah. There are no written lines, but they do etch into the parchment a line. They etch into the parchment lines, and that makes sure that when the sofer, the scribe, is writing, whether it's a Sefer Torah or a mezuzah, right? Those need what we call sirtut. Okay, tefillin does not require it, but still they'll do it to keep it nice and neat. So they'll etch a line there, and then they'll write under the line, meaning the top of the right when we're writing English, right? So we write on the line. In Hebrew, the top of the letter is abuts the bottom of the line. So that's how all the letters are written, and that makes sure that it's going to be written neatly and nicely. Okay, so in the Sefer Torah, he's not using a pen over there, right? In the picture over there, he's etching. He's using a sharp to etch a line, and then they write under that. Okay. The malach of marking lines involves marking lines or figures on various kind of material. Forbidden activities include marking lines or other shapes on a material using ink, paint, or a sharp instrument, even a fingernail, in preparation for cutting or dividing that material, right? And again, that I don't think is so relevant to us. Cutting to shape, 31, page 179. The malach of cutting to shape involves cutting, plucking, or tearing a material to a desired size or shape. Forbidden activities include cutting cloth, leather, paper, other materials to size, sharpening pencils, splitting a pinch or splitting a piece of wood, or use as a toothpick, right? Where does this become very relevant to us on a week-to-week Shabbos basis? In the bathroom. Toilet paper. Okay? And that is why one should have the easiest thing to do. I know when my kids were little, one of them had the fire job to tear the toilet paper and put it into a bag, right? In Israel, they actually sell cut toilet paper, right? In America, they don't really have that so much, right? But box of tissues, right? But even a box of tissues, you want to get the tissues that are not. Many of the tissues are slightly attached one to other, and that's what helps to pull it out. You want to have those. Jose knows already when he buys tissues for the shul, right? To buy those that just stack there and they're folded one into the other, and that's how you get that same preparing the next one, right? And that's not a problem preparing, okay? You don't have to worry about the last issue, as we've been discussing, okay? So proper practice would be to have a box of tissues, right, in the bathrooms going into Shabbos. Let's say you go to someone's house and there are no tissues, right? So there we discussed this before, there is what we call kavod habriut, which is kavod, human dignity. Okay, so you're not expected to be okay. You can take care of the paperwork over there, right? And you would do your best to when you're tearing the toilet paper to do it in a unusual manner, not the usual manner. Like we said before, Shabbos is Melechet Machshevet with intent. So if you're doing in an unusual manner, right? Some people love this. Oh, with a shinoi, let me turn on the television with my. That doesn't work like that. Turn on the TV with your elbow does not cut it, right? But when it comes to toilet papers, there you do it in an unusual manner, and no, next time you go to that person's house to bring some of your own tissues if you might need the restroom. Yeah, and depending on the situation, you might want to mention to depending on your comfort level with them, to mention that a good idea is to have some tissues in there, on Shabbos. Yeah, that it has to be done very carefully, diplomatically, but yeah. So that's the cutting to shape. Another example of that would be, let's say, floss, right? Floss on Shabbos, right? So there you're cutting it to a certain measurement, how you like it to be, right? So floss should be prepared and cut before Shabbos, right? If you don't, so then maybe try using a floss stick, or what one can do is kind of just use it still attached over there. It gets a little harder to do the maneuvering, but that's what one would do in that case. Okay, and that brings us, good. Let's just do two more. Good, and that brings us to the last two of this set of 9, which is writing and erasing. Okay, page 180, number 32 of the 39, writing. Writing involves writing letters, numbers, lines, forms which have meaning. Forbidden activities include recording letters or shapes by writing, sketching, drawing, engraving, embroidering, pouring into a mold the shape of a letter, stamping a rubber stamp, cutting out letters, printing. It's prohibited to write on any material in which writing is discernible, like paper, wood, ice, sand, even a misty window. You would not want to write there. Or liquids that spilled on the table. Our sages prohibited a number of activities which might cause a person to write, like talking about business, purchasing items, measuring, weighing. Now, measuring, if it's for a cause like a chola, right, a person who's sick, there you could take their temperature, but it would need to be one of those old-fashioned, not one of those mercury old-fashioned thermometers, and not one of the electrical ones like that.
You know what? They don't even sell those anymore.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's some contraband if anybody needs it. Okay. Reading business articles, reading a guest list, playing games, which ordinarily involve writing. Okay. So I'll say a few things on this. Writing, playing games that often involve writing, right? So first of all, Scrabble, right, will not be an issue, even though you're spelling out words, because it's not in any permanent manner, and it's just arranging letters. Okay. Now, but usually you're keeping score with that. So the way that we keep score on Shabbos, everybody know how we keep score on Shabbos? You take a book and a bookmark, and you just keep moving it along. You have 24 points. You got another 11. Page 35. Right. That's a way to keep. Now, leave it to the Jews. Right. So very often, right, you're leaving the house, and someone's going to come afterwards, and you need to give them a message. I'm at shul. I went to friend. You want to. You're leaving. You want to let right. So how does one do that? So they actually sell these sets of these letters, words, common words, right, that you can kind of arrange, right, and that way you can leave a message for someone, right, if you're leaving. Okay. The malacha of erasing, 33, involves erasing or destroying a written form or character. Forbidden activities include any form of erasing, whether by an eraser, chemical means, scraping off, or tearing up letters. That becomes relevant. Where does that become relevant?
If you're opening up a food package that has letters on it.
Right. Opening up food packages that have letters on it. Birthday cakes that say on it, "Happy birthday, Bob." Right? So what do the kosher bakeries now normally do?
They
They
put
write
on
it
a
on chocolate.
block of chocolate. Yeah.
Right, Ryan. Instead of writing on the cake, they take a big piece of chocolate, they write it on that you could lift up and cut the cake with reckless abandon, right?
So
Now,
when
it's
it comes to, I'm
interesting.
sorry.
Going between letters, even if you're breaking up a word, is not an issue. It is going through a letter that is like erasing it. Now, sometimes you have like a biscuit or something that has it's written on it. It's formed on there, right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Right? Like a cracker that will have.
Like
The
the
stock
biscuit.
logo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it has like a logo on it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's not a
Hershey's chocolate bar.
problem. I'm sorry?
I said the Hershey's chocolate bar. It says Hershey's right on
Hershey's
the
chocolate
chocolate.
bar, right? Right. So there it's, I think, indented, but either way, even if it's jutting out, that's writing is when there's another material that's been written on it. It's one material on a different material. But if that's been formed, shaped into these letters, so that you can eat, right? Yeah. But tearing open packages, one needs to be careful not to erase, so to speak. That's something that becomes
So if
very
you're
difficult.
opening up like a tea bag or any bag of chips, you're saying that you're not allowed to tear it in a manner where you'd be tearing through letters, and you'd have to try to either open it up without breaking any
Correct.
letters or tear it in where. Okay.
Yeah, so a bag of chips is pretty easy. They just kind of pull it open and it will open up where it's glued together on the top. You don't have to tear it. You could just really pull it open like that. But something, yeah, I don't give out Laffy Taffies to the kids on Shabbos. I stick to my Dum Dum lollipops, right? Because that's easy. The thing comes right off. The Laffy Taffy gets complicated, right? And for the little kids, doing it is not really such an issue. But Dad, can you help me, Mommy? So I just try to stay clear. Yes,
What if
Lily.
you write that in a deconstructive way?
I'm sorry.
What if you rip the packaging with letters in a deconstructive way?
Okay, so in the destructive way, that helps in terms of what Rachel brought up before, which is makeh bepatish, which is making a kli. So if I'm doing it in a destructive way, I'm not making a kli, but I am erasing. So the destructive way doesn't help us when it comes to the erasing aspect. Okay? Okay, good. So that brings us through the first 33. Now we have 2211. We have building and deconstructing. We have lighting a fire, extinguishing a fire. And then we have, that's our 2-2. Then we've got the final hammer blow, 38. And then we have carrying, which I said before that the final blow is the final 39th. Actually, it's the 38th, right? And the 39th is carrying from one domain to another. Okay? So we'll pick up there next week, my friends, at the same time. Yes?
I had a quick question about writing. Can kids use chalk?
Better not to. Better not to. Again, with kids, depending on the age, but at your Aaron's age already, I think to start to learn that which activities, which things are Shabbos appropriate and which are not, just to get into the rhythm on that. All right. Very good. Okay, everybody. Have a good night. Congratulations again, Shelby. So you're having a meeting with Rabbi Ru coming up soon.
We don't we don't have one scheduled, but we would like to schedule one probably the last week of November or so.
Perfect. Perfect. Good. And you'll keep me posted on how that goes.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Rabbi. Good night.
Good night. Good night.